Stuart St. Paul. For those of you that are meeting me for the first time, and probably most of you be meeting Stuart for the first time that you recognize, my name's Ken Edmonds, and this channel, we try really hard to provide information that helps individuals cruise as effectively as possible from a cost perspective. So we help you find bargains. We also provide information on cruise ports, and we include some entertainment along the way. If you haven't subscribed, do me a favor, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you can hear me, I'd love to see a thumbs up or a wow face or a heart or something, so I know you're there. Stuart, I know you're an actor, an author, a director. I'm sure I've missed some. So give us a little more of your background.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for having me on today. Well, I've had a kind of a weird career that snaked up and down. And I think the reason for that is because I chased the pound note or chased the dollar, I think, as some people might say. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to have a family and kids and buy a house. And in this game, it can be very hard sometimes. So I was originally a broadcaster, a DJ on the radio. And when I moved across and started acting, the livelihood of an actor wasn't as interesting or appealing to me as it had been on the radio. And then somehow I got into stunts and action. And I moved through that stunt and action side up to being a director. That's kind of how I went. So the stunts and action area was what kept paying the bills because it was constant employment, but not without its trouble. There are a few of my friends who are in chairs, and some of them will never, ever sadly come out of those chairs. I did break my back once. So, you know, you kind of get to sympathize with the problems that are there because obviously if you mix with athletes and stuntmen, they do have problems.
Yeah, very good. So now you have kind of an interesting story about your first cruise. So tell me about what happened that led up to the cruise and your, just tell me the story.
Well, I can honestly say I'm one of those people that if you were going to put me in a box, I would be in the box saying, never cruise. I will never cruise. My wife said she would never cruise. Both of us said, we were like, oh no, we won't do it. And there's a certain arrogance about that. I had it. And I can see it in other people now. You know, you talk to them, they go, oh yeah, no, I'm not a cruiser. It wouldn't suit me. And I was in that box because I'd never cruised. I didn't know anything about it. And what happened was I was on a TV show which rotated its stars and its actors through to cruise ships to talk about the show. And I got put on rotation out to one of those ships. I actually almost went kicking and screaming. I was trying to get out of it. And I actually said to Jean, do you want to come? Doesn't always come with me when I'm working. She nearly didn't. I nearly went on the cruise by myself. But the pair of us went. We instantly fell in love with cruising. And we have cruised as much as we can ever since.
Yeah, it's amazing that cruising is one of those things that gets in your blood. So what was the first ship you cruised on?
Well, the first ship was the Black Watch, which is a Fred Olsen ship. It's a very small ship. This is probably about 20 years ago. So we're going back some time. And this was a ship that particular cruise line had a deal with that TV show. So us as performers on that show would go out to that particular cruise company.
Okay, now, and I understand that you're currently under contract with Carnival, and that you sail on some of their European brands or British brands. So, what is your favorite brand ship?
Well, I'm very lucky because I think Carnival is a great brand. I think it's got a great selection of ships. I tend to work more on the P&O brand. I have been on the Cunard brand. I haven't yet done any of their others, but I'd love to, and I'm looking forward to it. But they do have similar ships. So even the ships I'm sailing on the P&O brand, other ships, the American brands will be very used to them because their brother and sister ships are similar ships to the ones that we're on. So I kind of quite like the Ventura at the moment. It's an exact replica of the Azura, and there are many Carnival ships sailing on the American brands which are exactly the same. But it's the styling just inside, the decor, which makes them a little bit different from the other ones. And then following from that, you'll find that the people who like it, they then give the ship a different flavor. Ventura yeah, definite thumbs up is probably the good one for us at the moment.
Okay, this sounds amazing. I keep trying to find a way to get over to the other side of the pond to try some of those brands. Some of them occasionally show up on this side, but right now we're kind of stuck with NCL. I'm starting to build some status. And,
well, I think it's like birds. You know that what they say, birds fly south in the winter. Ships all tend to go towards the Caribbean in the winter, and we're on a transatlantic crossing in about 3 weeks' time as one of those ships. In fact, the Azura is going across to the Caribbean. So a lot of English ships will be out there and doing. In fact, in March, we've picked up a really good cruise coming down the Florida coast, ducks into Key West, goes around to New Orleans, and then goes down and hits some places we've never been before. And that's what excites me about cruising, is going to new places.
Yeah, I understand that excitement. I looked at Norwegian has got a cruise up in the fall. It goes from New York through the Panama Canal and then over to San Francisco, and it's got some amazing ports. 20 days, but I'm in the middle of teaching a class and I can't go. I hope maybe next year I can work my schedule a little better.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those that are going to cruise on Cunard or P&O for the first time, what kind of suggestions do you have for them?
Well, I think it doesn't matter which brand you're going on, is to actually do a bit of research before you go, because a cruise ship is a village, it's a town, and there are so many different things on there available to the cruiser. It takes you a while to learn about a ship. It takes you a while to understand a ship. But if you can get on there running at full speed, and actually be able to use the facilities which you will like. It's a bit like going around any town. You might not want to go to the local library, but you do want to go to the local Indian restaurant. And so figure out where you want to go, which bars you want to use, and two people on the same ship can have a totally different experience, totally different. We went on holiday, well, not holiday, we were working, but two couples came with us on the ship. And one of them has done really well for himself, and he had a suite. And his brother was in an ordinary room on one of the decks with a balcony. Now, you couldn't have had more chalk and cheese on the same ship. And yet they had fantastic holidays, both seeing different areas of the ship, coming together occasionally, having a drink in the same bar, but absolutely enjoying their own cruise in their own way.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with you. It's funny. My wife and I, a lot of times we tend to just stay on the ship. We got started cruising because we had our own business. And when we went on a cruise, we could be where nobody could bother us, because that was back in the day that it was almost impossible to get in hold of somebody on a cruise. And I am like, I want to be where I can leave my phone down. I don't have to worry about the office. I just want to completely unplug. And in a lot of cases, what we like to do is we will just hang out on the ship. We did a 10-day cruise out of New Orleans. And in the 10 days we were on board, we got off in 2 ports. And the rest of the time we stayed on board and just enjoyed it. It's kind of like an empty theater when everybody gets off and goes up ashore. Then the pool's wide open and you can enjoy with some peace and quiet.
I totally understand that we know lots of people who actually stay on the ship or just enjoy the transatlantic or the trans-Pacific cruises where they're actually just on the ship for a whole lot of time. There's not very many ports to go to because they love being on the ship. But I mean, we have things on our list now. We have like a bucket list. New Orleans is on one of them. So we're looking forward to, I think it's March, we get to New Orleans. And now we film the ports and give filmed advice on our Doris Visits channel. We'll be filming New Orleans and doing some, hey, this is us in New Orleans. And that I'm really looking forward to. I enjoy that.
Yeah, we enjoyed New Orleans. New Orleans is not a wheelchair-friendly town, though. I'll say this. We stayed down very close to the French Quarter, which is close to where the port is. And all the sidewalks seemed like they were, A, mostly cobblestone, and B, they all sloped toward the street. And so I was pushing my wife in a wheelchair, and it's like, got to kind of angle her up the hill a little bit to keep her from running out into the street. right there by the terminal, there's a really nice mall and shopping area. There's a little bit of a tour on my channel about it. I'm assuming you probably will pull into the same area for your port. I look forward to looking at your video. That was my very first video, and it was pretty bad. You live and you learn in doing this.
You do. I mean, I've been in the film and TV industry for 50 years now, and when we started making our port videos, I would say the ones we make now are really quite sharp and they're good. But the ones we were making 3 years ago, they were good, but they didn't absolutely hit what the cruiser's looking for straight away. And they're looking for information. They're looking to see, what do I do here? Do I go on the excursion, or do I walk down to bus garage and get a local bus up to the beach? And that's the kind of information you need to get over very quickly. And I think we've got that off to a T now. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, and so for those of you that are watching live, we do have a couple of people watching live. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments, and do me a favor, hit the like button if you're enjoying Stuart and the information he's providing. So let me ask a question touching on the wheelchair. My wife travels with a wheelchair, so how accessible are the Cunard and P&O ships as far as getting around with a wheelchair?
Well, they're excellent. I would say pretty much all cruise ships are wheelchair friendly. It's probably the most wheelchair friendly thing you will ever do. And not only that, but the staff are so keen to help you that if you're in trouble, I'm sure that's the same on all the brands. I hear it all the time from all of the cruises that we speak to. The people on board will help you. One exception, Petersburg. St. Petersburg in Russia, definitely do not expect help with your wheelchair if you go on an excursion or take a coach. They'll tell you that, but before you book it, they don't necessarily tell you that. So that's one place where you will not get the help when you go out on the excursion. But on the ship, I would say it's the most wheelchair-friendly holiday you can take. It's on an ocean cruise ship. The river ships may not be as easy, but the ocean ships, pretty much all the big ones, are wheelchair-friendly.
Okay, thank you. And it's interesting your comment about St. Petersburg, because my wife and I had actually booked a Baltic's capital cruise. It was 10 days, I think, and visiting the Baltic capitals on Norwegian, and we wound up taking off and canceling that trip because as I was reading about the ports with the cobblestone streets in so many of the older cities, and in St. Petersburg there's not much help, and it's you want to get into a lot of places, you got to be able to climb steps, and you're on and off the bus. And we just decided that was going to be a little more than we thought would be easy for us.
I would agree. I would agree. In fact, I would go as far as to say some cruisers have never cruised because I don't mean that in a rude way, but people who only cruise the Caribbean, so they get off, go to the beach, get back on the ship. They've never done a cruise like the Baltic, which is a totally different affair. A cruise in the Caribbean is like a beach holiday, whereas a cruise in the Baltic is a visit of historic old medieval capitals. And even if you are very mobile, you will be exhausted at the end of that cruise. Because as you said, like Stockholm, which is 19 islands connected by bridges, even Copenhagen, which is probably the flattest of all of those Baltic cities. It's a huge walk, and you've got to get around to all those different places. And even when you get to them, they're not wheelchair friendly. So that is something which you need to take a sort of a view on, because the Baltic cruise is hard work, even if you're mobile. It is for historians. It's for people who like history, like to get in and see old towns. Totally, totally different to a Canary Island cruise or a Caribbean cruise.
And I would agree with 100% with that as well. It's interesting. We've been privileged to do quite a few. We've done a couple of Alaska cruises. We just did one on the Jewel this summer. I'm working now on trying to edit the videos out from that. And I will say this, that Alaska is my favorite cruise destination.
Wow. Okay.
Because the beauty is just stunning. You see things that are pristine, that look like they've never been touched by man. And it's interesting too, because when you're cruising Alaska, it's the one place I would pay for a balcony. Normally my wife and I get an inside handicap as low and as middle of the ship as we can get, because that's the most
Yep.
stable.
Sure.
And you're not in your cabin that much. But in Alaska, I literally
I can understand that. In Alaska, I think I would definitely go for a balcony. Whereas I would agree with you, it feels totally unnecessary on a ship. Normally, because you have so many places where you can stand and look over the rail of a ship. You know, you don't need a balcony.
Well, and this spot of water looks a lot like the next spot of water. Whereas in Alaska, a lot of times you could hit a pitching wedge either direction and hit land. It's just, I mean, it's amazing how close you are to shore, both sides of the ship. But we did Bermuda, and Bermuda is kind of an interesting cruise because you get 2 or 3 days in port, you know, where you're overnight and you're in the same place, so you can get off and explore all day. You can do the beach, you can do the tourist stuff. Whereas, like you said, the Caribbean is very much either beach or you're going to go explore some particular little thing. So it's like entirely different cruises.
Right. So Bermuda was a changeover. Was it a changeover? It's a home port for some of the ships. You had a changeover day there.
No, actually, for us on Norwegian and on I think several of the U.S. cruise ships, because that's the only port they go to is Bermuda. So, like out of New York City, they'll do a 5 or 7 day cruise to Bermuda. And so you may spend 3 days tied up in Bermuda, where you're there 24 hours a day for 3 days, which is really nice because Bermuda is an island that's a lot of fun to explore, and it's easy with the mopeds to run a moped and go around and see.
It's actually very easy on the bus as well. Bermuda is really easy on the public bus. You buy one ticket, you can travel all day, right? Yeah. You can use the boat and the bus on the same ticket.
Right. You can do the ferries and the buses.
Yeah.
I will say that I probably have the record for doing the most damage possible to a moped, because my wife and I were there on our honeymoon, and I had passed her and I looked kind of showing off, hi, because they had told the husbands, you know, when we rented the moped to follow the wives. And so I flew around her, and when I looked back up, there was nothing but a coral wall in front of me, and there was nothing I could do. It was really funny too, because I woke up in the hospital. My wife had been concerned that she was married to a vegetable, because she said I got up on all fours and was making weird animal noises. And then when we went back to the moped place, they showed me what I had done to the moped, and the front wheel was wrapped clear up around the gas tank. And then they said, no, you can't have a moped. We'll get your wife a moped for 2, but you can't drive.
Yeah. I think it'd be safer on a quad or some other modern vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just not driving. But I was much younger and much more ignorant in those days. So again, tell me a little bit about your port cruise guide. You talked a little bit about it, but I understand.
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, I don't want to go on the film set anymore. I mean, I'm 65 now. And sort of the idea of getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning and then doing a 14, 15-hour day and then doing prep meetings in the evening. And because I would be an HOD or directing certain units, I'd be meeting on Sunday as well, my day off, to go and do recce's on locations. So the idea is, no, not interested in doing that level of hour work pressure anymore. And we decided to kick back a bit. And when we stopped on cruising, we didn't want to retire exactly. So we went, oh, why don't we film the ports as we get off? So we actually film the ports for Doris Visits. We make port guides, literally get off the ship. We don't rush off the ship. We get off the ship easily after the crowd, about 10:30. In 3 or 4 hours, we've normally shot all the major things from the bus garage to the beach. And we get back on at 4 o'clock, have a cup of tea while the material's downloading. I then edit between 5 and 8. The film's normally finished editing by 8 o'clock. By the time I go to the bar, it's rendering. And I don't touch it again till I get back. We lay the sound and music on when I get back and put it straight up. So we're not spending hours and hours like a professional company would, but they're very professional looking videos because that's what we did for a living. And now I'm referring back to those very videos and those very memories as I write the thriller novels that I'm writing, which I do hope go to becoming a TV series. So retired, yeah, I am retired, but still working, but from home and enjoying the cruising.
Yep. In fact, I do see behind you, and I missed that on our earlier interview that we did, that there are some of your books in the background. So tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about the cruise ship heist and some of the other books you've written and
So
are writing.
So effectively, I've set up a cruise ship, cruise ship crime investigators, CSCI. It's an agency, a couple of guys and a couple of girls who go out looking at the major crimes there are on cruise ships. Of course, on cruise ships there aren't that many major crimes, but it's easy for somebody with a mind as twisted as mine to imagine them. So the first one is a cruise heist. It's about money being taken out away from South America. And that's not a big stretch to imagine how that might happen. So effectively, that crime is solved and you get to meet the characters, and there's an awful lot going on in that particular book. So that's this one. That's the first one. The characters are together by the time we get to the second book. You don't need to read the first book to read the second one, which is called Cruise Ship Serial Killers. And that one's about leaving Panama, going across to Tahiti. What's that, 11 days at sea with no sight of land or stop. And the cruise ship killer kicks off 2 days away from Panama, and he kills somebody every night. And the guys are flown out and dropped onto the boat to solve that and catch the killer. So the second one's Cruise Ship Killer. First one's Cruise Ship Heist. And the one I'm writing at the moment is Cruise Ship Laundry Wars. And everybody knows about the laundry on a cruise ship, the chat, the gossip, the pranks that go on, like sticking a Mars bar in the other bars or other chocolates are available. Sticking a chocolate bar in the dryer when somebody upsets somebody else. Some horrible things go on. The book kind of kicks off. You think that's where it's going, and then it just goes wham. You weren't expecting this, and it goes somewhere else. About a third of the way into that one. It was planned for next year, but it may actually get out for this Christmas if we're lucky. Actually, I'll tell you something funny about the books as well, is that on a cruise ship, and you'll know this, Ken, it's a completely multicultural thing, isn't it, a ship?
I mean, it's amazing how many different groups of people.
Yeah, absolutely, from Asians to people from the Baltic. Below deck is almost a patois spoken. So somebody from America noted my colloquialism of some of the characters was not as they expected to hear it in America. But people on a cruise ship speak differently because they're mixing with so many other different people. So it is a mixed up, multicultural. Below decks is just amazing. And that, of course, is the base of the ships and the base of the people that are involved in this ship.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a very interesting book. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I hope you went out and get your series, because I think that would make. I think you could have a lot of fun. I go back, and maybe my first interest in cruising goes back to the Love Boat. I'm sure you remember that. Yeah. And it's obviously very different now than my imagination was watching that show. But it is such an amazing way to travel, such an amazing experience. I do look forward to. Hopefully, I can have your wife on, and she can tell me about. Maybe we could do some port talk about some of the ports. For those that are interested, there is a link up above that I will take you to his channel so that you can see their port guides. They have some amazing port guides. I'd encourage everybody to take a look at it. It'll also be linked in the playlist at the end of the video. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to leave me some comments. If you've enjoyed it, like it. But leave comments, and I'll try to find answers. I know how to get a hold of Stuart. If you ask a question I can't answer, I will forward it to Stuart, and we'll see if we can get you some answers. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, again, please do so. And there will be some links to some other videos I think you'll enjoy. Thanks for being with us.
You're doing a great job, Ken.
Okay, and I'm